Gnoblars were slaves once. For generations, they served the ogres faithfully, sacrificing mind, body, flesh, and soul. No longer. The Knights of Pigbarter were the first to enter open rebellion, and the unwashed masses followed soon after, throwing off the shackles of their oppressors, and turning the ogres' war machines and beasts of burden against them. They have gathered in their untold thousands to teach these corporate over-tyrants a lesson they won't soon forget, that workers have rights, that unions and collective bargaining are the path to the future, that snacking on Gnoblars is bad for company morale. Let's see if their rebellion has any legs, or if it will be crushed under the surging mass of a vengeful ogre tribe. As you can probably tell, using the Gnoblar Horde mod today, my Mixu lost to insanity and calm and normal time, and it turns them into their own unique faction with quite the eclectic and hilarious army roster. The Knights of Pigbarter are giving each other bareback piggyback rides, and they pimp themselves out with some knightly swag from the fair kingdom of Bretonia. They don't have the mobility or martial skill of a true Bretonian knight, but by the lady are they trying their best, and they should be respected for those efforts. Behind them are the Yetis, a unit we will almost certainly see alongside Thunder Tusks when the ogres get their first Lord pack, whenever that will be. But for now, modders will make do, and these fast, frostbite monstrous infantry will provide the armor piercing this Gnoblar rebellion needs to take down the big guns. In the hero slot is a wood-bellied duelist riding a saber tusk, and a bone chewer of the lore of beasts, that 1 in 10,000 Gnoblar with an affinity for magic. Curse of Anrahir, Amber Spear, and Transformation of Kadan. They've even requisitioned some Rhinoxen for the cause, although in this case the Rhinox riders are quite literally just a single animal rather than a pack of the beasts. Rest of the army is a whole bunch of fodder, not exactly the most elite or well-trained of standing armies, but what they lack in skill, they certainly make up for in numbers. They've got almost 4,000 troops on the field right now, and they know how ogres like to fight. So, hordes of bonus-rich large pigback riders, slingers, gunpowder bombers, and knife throwers with armor sundering should make their close-range focus fire pack quite a punch. This Gorespittle's ROR in particular might be a nasty one for the more elite armored troops of the ogres to deal with. In fact, this revolution's biggest advantage is likely that combination of shooting, stalking, and trapping for slowing down the ogre's sometimes overwhelming speed advantage. Gnoblar traps are quite good. Far in the vanguard is the dreaded mastermind of this rebellion, the iconic, the legendary, the fearsome Nabo the Masked, a witch-hunting, Skaven assassinating, ambidextrous Gnoblar duelist riding a Smilodon into the sunset. True champion of the people, who gets replaced by a new Gnoblar every time he's struck down. 50% of the time, his abilities work every time, then he shanks you with daggers laced with scorpion venom. As for the ogre tribes, well, they've had enough of this organized working class. It's time to deploy the Union Busters and get these slaves back to work. Armored Crushers and Stonehorns are just the units for the job. They can weather the missile storm with their high armor and missile block chance and shatter a Gnoblar regiment in a single charge, so they will control the left wing, supported by a hunter and packs of gorgers behind. The army itself is led by a tyrant, using the visual mods by Frob, or Frobe, I don't know how the umlaut works to be honest, to make them look cooler, and this is without question the more dangerous half of the army, designed to overload a flank and smash right through to the squishy center. However, up in the foothills, the ogres have a sneaky little surprise as well. A butcher and some iron fists have taken the high ground. They're going to force this Gnoblar army to split apart to deal with the threat as they stream down that mountainside. And if those unwashed masses are not careful here, they might soon find themselves surrounded by some very angry, very hungry ogres and a few slaves to boot. So the opening of this battle is going to play out more like a 2v2, except it's only one person controlling each army, and it is a 40 unit cap battle with a lot more funds and a lot more models on the field than your typical 1v1. Nabo the Masked looks like he's getting aggressive in the vanguard, going after some of the ogres. He does have some kind of missile attack, but I'm not sure it's working properly right now, because we tried to make him kill things from range, and he's not able to fire anything. He never uses any ammo, so frankly, I'm not sure how that works. Maybe the modders will be able to clarify exactly how that functions. Looking at his model, I'd imagine he might be throwing shurikens or something. Maybe even have a Witch Hunter pistol he stole off an Inquisitor in Pigbarter. Stonehorn and Rhinox Riders will be the X factor for the ogres here. Their extremely high armor and general tankiness, combined with their speed that far outstrips anything the Gnoblars have, besides their few Saber Tusk units, should open things up for this initial assault, and that is a pancaking, cataclysmic charge to get things kicked off. And the regular Ogre Bulls will likely fare much worse against these overwhelming numbers of daggers and little shanky projectiles. Individually, they don't hurt that much, but when thousands are being hurled your direction, even Iron Fist will only do so much. So 130 armor on the Rhinox Riders and their missile block chance will help tremendously. The missile resist and high armor value on the Stonehorn will allow it to bust their way through these Knights of Pigbarter. No problem at all. But again, individually, Ogres will crush any single engagement here. It's more about the fact that the Gnoblars have quadruple the amount of Ogres there are on the field. So getting through all those numbers and all that focus fire might prove challenging. Classic flank overload employed here. Rhinox, Sabertusk, Stonehorn, all the terror-causing stuff on one side, quickly trying to break the opening flank of these Gnoblar peoples, make them start running, and then collapse in on the center, fully surround that group in the middle, and bust down their HQ, finish them off for good. Gnoblar traps are being deployed by some of those more sneaky armor-sundering troops, and they may have to commit more to this side of the battlefield because there's a lot of routing already after those initial impacts. Our single entity Rhinox battle barges looking to plug the holes and stem the tide for now. Dual weapon bulls realize they might have bit off more they can chew. Slingers and trappers forcing them backwards for now. They'll seek refuge in the tree line, while an amber spear smacks the hunter Stonehorn combo in its rock hard face. Thunder Mace smashing down with the force of Mjolnir in the center, sending 180 Gnoblars into the afterlife, and the Tyrant is just getting started. Dude is famished, hasn't eaten in like at least 15 minutes. Should have quite the feast should the Ogres manage to win this battle. And we'll shift over to the other side, because the Butcher and his ambush wing just made first contact. Gnoblars must have had a solid intelligence report, because they were ready for it, and the charge is received big time. Bone Crusher smacking home and killing a good 40 or 50 Gnoblars. And I'm going to be curious to see how these bulls do here. There are some dual weapon variants, but mostly it's just the regular Ogre Bull, and they will get shish kebabbed by all of these dagger throws. And it looks like the Gnoblars have a lot of range troops behind their initial waves of spears and Ogre Biters, which are bonus versus large. So gonna be very curious to see how this engagement goes. They might have enough numbers supported by those hilarious Knights of Pigbarter. The Piggyback Riders are just an amazing model. I have no idea how modders were able to accomplish that, but they are animated too, and they have some pretty cool animations, so super well done on that front. Rhinox Riders are having a field day, naturally. I mean, they're just completely running over everything they touch, and 130 armor and, I don't know, 25 missile block chance or whatever, 15 missile block chance. It's too much for even this ridiculous Gnoblar focus fire to cut through. Gorgers behind the Rhinox charge. That is a terrifying combination, and it's looking like the Purple Ogre tribe might be able to overwhelm the Gnoblar Rebellion over on this flank. Feral Manticore just crumbled out from transformation of Kadan. In the center, Stonehorn is proving to be quite problematic for the Gnoblar peoples, but there are a bunch of routed troops that have returned, and they could get a bit of a sandwich on these elite Ogre forces, and that is one important point to make here. When an army is this elite and this outnumbered, it's very easy to get good value trades, and so when you have a unit like the Knights of Pigbarter, which have armor piercing and 38 melee defense and tons of models, they can rack up an obscene amount of damage on some of your most important troops. So Ogres do have to be careful what engagements they take. They've got their Butcher moving into the center on the other flank, still casting those Bone Crushers wherever he can, clearing out the hordes, the unwashed masses, and smacking things around with his Tenderiza. Never had a Gnoblar fillet mignon, but I imagine it might taste pretty good. The Butcher knows what he's doing, and he knows how to cook some meat, I would imagine. Medium rare, please. Nice Bone Crusher on some of the Gnoblar trappers in the back, and they have managed to almost entirely break the Ogre force out on that side. We're seeing a bunch of Gorgers who do not have the support from Scragg's Cauldron of the Great Maw. Well, they're beginning to be dragged down too. There was a Butcher cast on the Stonehorn, single entity heal that will give him upwards of 25% of his life back. So that is one thing we should also note. They're not fighting demons here. And that's one of the weird things about army abilities in Warhammer 3. So many of these army abilities do not function against demons, which are the main focus of Warhammer 3. But all the army abilities will work against the Gnoblar Hordes, which means a lot of single entity heals that can go the way of the Stonehorn or the Rhinox Crushers. Butcher is being dragged down. I don't think he's long for this world. About to rout, but one last Bone Crusher overcast before he falls, killing a good amount of Gnoblars there, but they pretty much completely wiped the floor with that Ogre Ambush Wing. Woodbelly about to strike the killing blow on our favorite Butcher. Why would you do this? He's a 5-star Michelin chef. Leave him alone. And I think the lack of armor for the Ogres out on that side was their biggest downfall there. That's keeping the Gnoblars in this game. Winning that wing has opened up the rest of their army that can come in to reinforce, and that could change things, because the Ogre tribes do not have a lot of numbers left, but arguably they have their most important units remaining. The dual weapons, the Rhinox Crushers, and the Stonehorn are all alive and relatively healthy, considering this game's been going on for 7 minutes already, and usually these kind of battles are pretty brutal and pretty fast. So this is where both forces will kind of separate and reposition, rethink how they want to engage. Ogres do not have a lot of numbers, so they'll probably want to keep some kind of strong point, some bulkhead behind that Stonehorn, and then smash into what remains of the Ogre army, rather the Gnoblar army, in one colossal impact. And I mean, you really can't ask for better units than a Stonehorn and Rhinox Crushers to lead the charge in that kind of scenario. They'll run down whatever they can, prevent these reinforcements from returning back to the main army. You can see there are a bunch of broken and shattered units on the edges of the map, and what remains of the Ogre Ambush Wing, well, they're still around, but it's not a lot, and they'll have to be careful. But that's a decent amount of killing power retained in those 4 or 5 units, so if they're used well, they might still be able to make an impact, and they have the benefit of being out on the hilltop way faster than the rest of the Gnoblar army. They can outrun them and kind of avoid engaging until the opportunity is ripe for the picking. Swollen, a deep blue hue, ready to take them to farmer's market, right for the picking. Alright, we got 200 kills on the Tyrant, Stonehorn, remnants of Gorgers that will not be getting the benefit of the regen from Scragg's Cauldron of the Great Maw, so probably not going to be too impactful here. And the Gnoblar Rebellion is beginning to make for the hillside, throwing in a couple of units just to slow down the Ogre advance, but they're actually chasing after the Ambush Wing. And frankly, I like that positioning. If you're the Gnoblar Rebellion, you want to fight in the woods, or at least on top of that hill if you can make it there, and force these Rhinox and the Stonehorn to charge uphill into a less than ideal scenario. Fighting in the woods would debuff them quite tremendously, and a beautiful javelin throw from the Hunter taking out a Yeti as it retreats. Rhinox busting through, goring, smashing, stomping, smacking. These tattered holding forces will not be able to stop their advance alone. But Nabo the Masked is still alive. His Woodbelly and Caster are still alive as well. And they will have a terrain advantage here as the Ogres grow more and more desperate to end this once and for all. Here they come. It's the final countdown. The Ambush Wing has finally decided to turn around. They will get a downhill charge, but they will be outnumbered and isolated from the rest of this Ogre main force as the Stonehorn, the Rhinox Crushers, and everything collapse into the center to put this rebellion down for good. The Tyrant in the thick of it with his battle standard and his own tenderizer. Carve some meat off their bones, then tenderize it and make yourself some nice steaks. Here comes the charge. Dual weapon Ogre Bulls into the thick of it with Saber Tusk Pack and a single entity Rhinox Battle Barge. Another transformation of Kadan from the Woodbelly, and he's got essentially a cauldron pulled by Saber Tusk charging downhill. Butcher going the way of the Stonehorn, trying to keep that terror alive, because I believe it is the Ogre's only source of terror on the battlefield right now, besides maybe one of their army abilities. Rhinox Crushers coming in, and great play from the Barrel Manticore. They need whatever they can to bring that thing down, because it's almost full HP, and that high armor value is keeping it in the fight. But the Ogres were just wiped off the face of the map, even with the downhill charge. The Sabertusk pack for the Gnoblars, and these glorious, brave Knights of Pigbarter, emulating their Bretonnian cousins, and I mean, that's just straight up majestic. That's some Rohirrim shit right there. Gotta love it. Curse of Anra here, hitting a huge section of the Ogre army. Second or third time there's been a great Curse of Anra here this game, and debuffing pretty much everything in an AoE. There's some flying Manticore humping. The single entity problem still has not been fixed yet. Rhinox Crushers charging uphill, and they're slow as molasses in January right now, but they will make contact, albeit with a somewhat underwhelming charge. I think they're just exhausted. Oh, they are exhausted. I was like, there's no way they're only winded this long into the battle. That was the Slingers. Downhill charge from the Rhinox, much more impactful. Just sent a whole host of Gnoblars flying across the map. And we did see a Massacre on the Stonehorn as well. That's 25% AP and base weapon damage, including Terror. So, yeah, that is their other source of terror. Gorgers will be dragged down in melee combat with the Knights of Pigbarter and a handful of Slingers. Looks like they've only got 167 HP left and only one model remaining. Amazing infantry killing potential on them, but only 165 HP means they'll be of limited usefulness for the rest of this battle. And you see tons of terror setting in for the Gnoblar Hordes, but Bounce Bar is still dead even because a lot of those troops are going to return, and the Ogres do not have enough mobility to chase off all these routing units. They do have their 2 Rhinox still remaining, but both are on slivers of HP left. I'm not sure they'll even have enough army currency to get another Butcher to heal them up. Knights of Pigbarter have a full surround off on the Tyrant. That's a lot of AP going his way as the Woodbelly and Nabo the Mast also continue beating down on the Tyrant Overlord. He's alive for now. Nice rear charge from the Rhinox Crushers causing more routing. Gnoblars are beginning to look a little bit thin here, but their dueling prowess is not to be underestimated. Tyrant could still die if a bunch of the Gnoblars return to the fold, and they have some Sabertusk pack coming over the mountainside too, so things again for a third time will reset. Crushers and Stonehorn staying compact and together, I think that is smart. You want to use them as a bowling ball, a wrecking force that just stays together and runs over everything in their path. That's leaving the Tyrant isolated, and we can see he was full HP only moments ago, now down to half HP because of the Gnoblar support and because of that Woodbelly who's actually taking him to Pound Town right now. I'm not sure why he's losing that fight so poorly. Oh my god. In the background, he is being systematically destroyed by that Woodbelly on Pigback. That was weird. I don't feel the Tyrant should have lost the fight quite that convincingly, and if you look at the Woodbelly stats, they aren't good enough to dumpster a Tyrant that hard, so he must have gotten pretty lucky on his combat rolls, but that's part of the game, part of the tabletop, part of Total War Warhammer, and the Tyrant is gone. But you win some, you lose some, and Nabo the Mast had his Another Takes Its Place special rule proc twice, so he was slivers of HP, now he's full HP, but he's shattered at the same time in miscast, and that sucks for him, dude. That's really unfortunate, because they could really use their legendary lord right now, who is a great duelist and would have helped tremendously in bringing down that Stonehorn. There's some random crusher just floating in space right now, so that looks pretty weird. But yeah, that's a big loss for the Gnoblar Hordes and for this rebellion, because a full HP Nabo the Mast could have maybe dragged down that Stonehorn, provided he had some support from the rest of the infantry, and it doesn't look like he'll return because he's shattered. Stonehorn is for sure heal capped. He's been butchered 3 times, which sounds weird, but that just means he got that 25 or 22% heal, whatever it is, multiple times, and I think he might prove a bridge too far for the Gnoblar Rebellion this late in the game. There are a handful of Rhinox Crushers left who are likely to rout momentarily, but this Stonehorn and all the single entity heals just so strong. The only chance the Gnoblars have now is the Woodbelly, who took down a Tyrant, but it's not enough. Army losses kicks in, and the Ogres will win a Pyrrhic and devastating victory. One more victory like this one shall be their undoing. Crazy fight, right down to the wire. Pretty much only the Stonehorn left in the end. And I think Nabo might have been able to take him down, or at least cause a rout there, had he not shattered. Unfortunate, but that is part of the problem. If you're not immune to psychology, you rout multiple times, eventually you will shatter and leave your people behind. So discretion is the better part of valor. Gnoblars put on quite the display. Almost managed to take down an incredibly elite Ogre army. Tyrant with 224 kills, 185 on the Butcher, and 315 on the Stonehorn, 418, 330 on the Red Axe Crushers. Those 5 were the MVPs. And over on the Gnoblar side, 2,000 damage value on the Wood Belly. So great dueling from him. Managed to take down an Ogre Tyrant, which is absolutely insane. And I love those Knights of Pigbarter. Without question, my favorite unit in the Gnoblar Hordes, the Unwashed Masses mod by Mixu, Lost to Insanity, and Calm and Normal Time. It's a fantastic mod. It's really cool to see the Gnoblars in action, and we don't even have the assembly kit yet. So once we get that, hopefully with Immortal Empires, then modding will open up like crazy, and we'll start getting those extra special siege scenarios and a lot of those content pieces you guys really love. So can't wait to get there. Hope you guys enjoyed.